To get the seats out of the bus was only half the issue. Getting rid of them was also going to be part of my challenge. Good thing Craigslist still had some good souls around. I actually had a pretty difficult time unbolting some of the legs around the areas of high traffic. The rust that was built up was mostly due to picking up passengers over the years who clearly had some muck on their boots. When Craigslist came through, it delivered to me a nice older gentleman named Bob, who, as luck would have it, not only had a need for a metric shit ton of shuttle bus seats, but also had a box truck in which to cart them off. If that wasn't enough, he even came prepared with some grinding bits, and together we took care of all the remaining seats. I kept 5 in total, 4 to create the kitchen table that I will talk about in a later video, and 1 with an armrest that I saved for the passenger seat, also which I'll be talking about later. This one is actually going to go on the top of the battery bank, which stores the solar power that I've planned on installing. It's hard to tell by all this post-apocalyptic scenery that I actually had a vision for what the bus would look like at the end of all this work, but I did see good things. To get the ball rolling, I had to gut the bus. This meant the seats, the ceiling, and even some of the hardware on the walls that was still in some of the nooks. First the seats, then the ceiling. The ceiling was actually a pretty big challenge. Not only was it in such bad shape that I literally had to rebuild some of it, bolting jerry-rigged plywood from the underside of the ceiling just to avoid larger supports that might later hinder the placement of insulation, but it was also so hazardous, in fact, that I canceled my filming plans. I didn't even want to have my camera in there. It wasn't just dusty and grimy. There were pockets of water that would suddenly gush down from the rafters once certain parts of it were unscrewed. There was also this nasty chemical glue left behind. It was so thick in some places I couldn't even get the wood down from where it was connected. It was in pretty bad shape, hence the hard work on laying out an entire sheet of EPDM rubber. EPDM rubber is an interesting, if difficult, material to work with. First off, it's insanely heavy. It's the same material that they roof office buildings with. It's several millimeters thick, too, so nothing is getting through this sheet unless I mean for it to. This would be the material that I've decided on using to keep from having to plug all the holes. Unfortunately, this also meant supporting the roof with new plywood sheeting. In the end, all the hard work would be worth it, but in the midsummer heat, I'd find myself questioning that logic several times over. Another challenge of this material is that it requires a special kind of glue. The company that makes it also makes its EPDM glue counterpart. It's basically that shit that Batman dropped Joker into in Tim Burton's 1989 rendition of the DC cult classic. The tricky part is that once in position, the glue must be applied immediately before unrolling the rubber. Once it's set, the only thing getting it off is a heavy construction crane. So first, it's heavy. Next, you must cut exactly what you need before bringing it up to the roof to save yourself some backache from the weight, which also means precise measurements on the ground. Then it has to be unrolled, measured for one final round before the glue goes on, and then rolled back up to make room for the lathering process. Once that starts happening, it must be unrolled inch by inch, being mindful of not only the precision of the lay, but also the coverage of the glue. It's basically mind-boggling that anybody gets this right, even more so that I did it right on my very first time. Also, keep in mind that while all of this is happening, the heat index was about 107 degrees, and I'm standing on top of black, heat-absorbing material. I was leaking sweat in sheets and soaked my shirts with the garden hose just to keep going in the midday heat. One of the things that I did that was of really big benefit was to take a Sharpie marker, which is strange, but black will actually show up on this rubber. And I found the center. I found the center of the width, and I drew a straight line all the way down, and then I found the center of the roof and I drew a straight line all the way down there. And then what I did was I flipped the rubber sheet over and then rolled it up so that when I rolled it out again, I would align those two lines so it would stay centered. And that's the biggest problem with running sheeting like this is that it's so easy to unroll it and then roll it back up. I must have unrolled it 3 or 4 times before I got it right, and I can't imagine just trying to guess without any kind of guide or gauge to do so. I mean, unless you're a professional crew that knows what they're doing already. So that's the best fix that I had for that. That worked out really, really well. I was able to align those lines perfectly. And I think in the end I only had like 1 inch of derivation on my final measurement from front to back, and it's a 27, actually I think it's a 30-foot cut sheet of rubber. So that's pretty good. If after 3 or 4 attempts at lining this thing up, and after having never done anything like this before, I think I did a pretty good job. The coolest part about having the roof finally done is that I can start working on the inside, and this is the most exciting part for me. Because I'm setting up posts and studs up through the ceiling where I'll bracket it in, I'm not going to do the insulating or the ceiling paneling until that's done, so I can cut around the studs that are going through into the roof, and then I'll panel around those or whatever. But this is the cool part, because this is where I actually make the guts of my little tiny home on wheels. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. If so, be sure to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Construction on the tiny home is actually complete, so visit kyleodonnell.com/blog to binge watch the build. You'll not only read my personal journals during construction, you'll also see videos covering everything from solar installation and transforming bedrooms to wiring your electronics and off-grid plumbing.